with some amazing books and an adequate show, my epic IP brings you a world that you know, of great intrigue and battles, of houses and thrones, so you can bet your bottom I'll crush your frail bones.
I seldom encounter such a simpleton brute, so steeped within the stench of a standard old root. See, I stand apart, full of new innovations, seething with subterfuge and alienations.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Rest and Reason. I'm RP the Red Panda, and today we continue round 1 of our first season of Rest and Reason. Last time, Small World defeated Barbarian Kingdoms and moved on to the Regional Shelf Championship. On the table today, Cosmic Encounter will face Game of Thrones for a chance to compete in the Diplomacy Shelf Championship. Like all the games in Round 1, Cosmic Encounter and Game of Thrones have two main things in common. First, both games have the main area control mechanic of Diplomacy area control. Basically, players compete with each other to occupy regions where only one player can have units with the use of constant negotiation, called Diplomacy. Diplomacy area control games generally encourage this constant negotiation through simple rules and combat assistance. Diplomacy actually stands as probably the most common example of diplomacy area control. Second, both games have the main combat mechanic of strength comparison, which I explained in detail during my Small World vs. Barbarian Kingdoms video. Although many of you will probably recognize these games, anyone who does not recognize these games should check out the No Rolls Barred review for Cosmic Encounter and the Shut Up and Sit Down review for a Game of Thrones board game. Now that you understand the basics of both games, let the match begin. Round 1, Replayability. Round 1 is a clear winner to me for Cosmic Encounter for a simple reason. It has a lot of moving parts. First, it has all of these moving parts. These are the player powers. There are 50 player powers. Every game you're going to be giving these out to all the people. The other moving part that it has is this giant deck of cards that is also going to be distributed that has a major effect on how the game is played. So it has a lot of moving parts, and that ups the replayability.
Yo, RP! Replayability isn't just about how many times you can play a game and it be different, but how many times you can play a game and it be good different. And that's the problem with constantly moving parts. They often lead to some meh games. Not all the games, but many of them will be meh. So people won't want to keep playing after a negative experience, bro.
Okay, so that's an interesting rebuttal on the replayability, that yes, moving parts can bring a lot of variety, but they also do sometimes lead to certain games being a little more meh. You might end up with a power that's not very good, or a hand that's not very good, so how does that not hurt the replayability? Well, it doesn't hurt the replayability almost at all, because these Cosmic Encounter games are short. So even if you end up with not so great of a hand or powers, it's not going to last long, and it's still going to be interesting to see what you can do with such a bad hand and power, despite the fact that it's a bad hand and power. There's still going to be an adventure to the game. But the biggest thing about moving parts is the fact that it brings so much new things to explore to every single game that you're going to play of Cosmic Encounter. It just constantly faces you with new combinations that you never thought would happen, or that you've never even thought of or seen before. And that leads to a lot of replayable fun, because you're always just like, wait, he just did what? I didn't know you could do that, or I forgot you could do that. So, that is why I think that Cosmic Encounter's moving parts really help it in the area of replayability. 5 to 2.5. Cosmic Encounter wins! Round 2. Masterability.
So, on Masterability, Game of Thrones actually takes the cake, and this is largely because of the moving parts in Cosmic Encounters. The moving parts in Cosmic Encounters makes it a little bit harder to master the game because everything's changing up every game. You never know what cards you're going to get. You never know what powers you're going to get. And Game of Thrones really is the same almost every time.
Like, duh, random zaniness can affect masterability, but like, player negotiations like totally offset this. If players simply like do their jobs, they will have like no problem stopping like somebody from, I don't know, like taking the lead or like having more power. Duh.
So negotiations can help this. So like in Cosmic Encounters, you could have a case where somebody's really powerful because their hand was powerful and their power was powerful, so they're really strong and people could all gather around and attack them. The problem is twofold for Cosmic Encounter, and the strength is twofold for Game of Thrones. First of all, Cosmic Encounter has such a wide range of luck. It has from power 40 all the way down to power 0. That is just a huge difference. And remember, earlier I was showing the ships and showing that there were 4 against 2. 40 counts as 40 ships. So you could bring the whole wazoo, and that 40 card is probably going to beat you. And that's one of the things for Cosmic Encounter. Everything is so random in the moving parts that sometimes somebody will just get screwed. The other problem is that, yes, player negotiations can make a big difference on masterability, but they kind of negate masterability. They don't add or deduct points from masterability because sometimes people play really smart. And when they play really smart, they'll see, oh, that person's really strong, I should go for them. But sometimes people don't play very smart. And that means sometimes they'll see somebody really strong and say, I don't care, you did this to me earlier, and I'm going to hold a petty grudge and attack you. So, ultimately speaking, Game of Thrones board game, because it has very solid rules and mechanics and very solid factions and less moving parts than Cosmic Encounters, is going to be a more masterable game.
1.5 to 4. A Game of Thrones board game wins! Round 3. Simplicity.
So in Simplicity, Cosmic Encounter wins largely based on administration. Now, for those of you who don't know, administration simply means how many pieces and things you have to move around between turns and how much time that takes. Game of Thrones, the board game, has a lot of this, and it hurts it a lot.
I disagree with you, RP. Simple rules can negate administration. Yes, of course, that means that you, as the experienced player, are going to have to do a little bit more. But for people like me, who are new, I won't have to do very much. So, it doesn't hurt Simplicity very much to have big administration.
Okay, so the argument here is that simplicity of rules in Game of Thrones, because the rules in Game of Thrones are relatively simple and logical, makes it so that it's not actually that difficult of a game. The problem is, yes, this means that those simple rules don't compound the problem. So it means it doesn't make it worse that you have to do all these random piece movings and all of this other administrative stuff in Game of Thrones. The simple rules make it so that doesn't become unbearable and horrible, but it doesn't help make it more simple. It's still incredibly difficult to do all of the administrative stuff, and especially as the person who knows how to play Game of Thrones, the board game, you're going to have to constantly remind people of how this goes in this order, or that does that, or that can't do that. Now, there is a computer version of this, but that's not what we're reviewing. We're reviewing this one where you as a human and other humans have to do all of that work. In Cosmic Encounter, on the other hand, there's almost no administration. Everything that you're moving around and doing has to do with the actual actions you are getting done. So there's no canceling of movements, there's no real weird complicated moves. It's mostly just, will you put ships here or not? Will you win this battle or not? So ultimately that makes this game a lot simpler because its admin is a lot lower than a Game of Thrones board game.
4 to 0.5. Cosmic Encounter wins! After listening to your reasoning, the judges have decided a winner. Despite an extremely tight debate, Cosmic Encounter has defeated Game of Thrones. Cosmic Encounter received 3.6 points and a silver recliner. The judges would generally recommend this game to anyone who wants a quick and easy diplomacy area control game to introduce to new players or to start a game night. Game of Thrones board game received 3.25 points and a silver recliner. The judges would generally recommend this game to anyone who wants a long and tactical diplomacy area control game for a close group of friends or as the main game for a game night. Well, that concludes episode 2 of season 1, Area Control Board Games. Having put up an admirable attack, Game of Thrones could not wrest the space from Cosmic Encounter. Cosmic Encounter will return in the Diplomacy Shelf Championship. Please let us know in the comments whether you enjoy this style of game versus game video or the style of episode 1. Additionally, please hit that like button, smash that subscribe button, and ring that notification bell. And for anyone who wants to help keep this channel going, please click on the link in the description to our Patreon page. Thank you so much for watching, and join us next time for Cosmic Encounter Fixed.